This is the eHealth Radio Network, your source for health advice on demand. And now your host, Eric Michaels.
Thanks for joining us once again here on the eHealth Radio Network. This is your host, Eric Michaels. eHealth Radio gives you the most current health information, news, and advice featuring some of the leading innovators in healthcare and wellness who are changing healthcare as we know it. For more eHealth Radio reports, we invite you to visit our main radio channel site at eHealthRadioNetwork.com. Today we're visiting with Dr. Rosemarie Booze, Professor and Bicentennial Endowed Chair in Behavioral Neuroscience at the University of South Carolina. Today we will be discussing the long-term effects of COVID on the brain and the impact it has to society. And Dr. Booze, thanks for joining us here today on the program.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here and speak with you about this very important subject.
Well, we certainly do appreciate you taking a moment to be with us here today and looking forward to hearing from you in these regards. So, for starters, how did the time you spent completing your postdoctoral fellowship at Duke University influence your chosen research area?
Sure. I had done my PhD degree at Johns Hopkins University, and I had very much focused on cells, individual cells in the lab and how they react to different compounds. And when I was looking for a postdoc that's post PhD to sort of broaden my research horizons, I was very interested in working in a neurology department. And so I ended up at Duke, and I learned so much about human diseases and how the brain works and how neurologists approach degenerative diseases that it really was a fantastic experience and broadened my perspective so much away from single, cells, single neurons in the lab in a dish to considering diseases and how the brain actually might work in humans and some of the consequences. So it really had a very profound influence on my career and the way I think about the brain. So it was a fantastic experience.
Yeah, I certainly do appreciate your sharing that from a personal perspective and why you chose this research area. Now, what is it about neurocognitive disorders that interests you the most? Talk to us about that.
Well, neurocognitive cognition is our thoughts and memories, and obviously that's a basis of who we are, right? The brain is kind of the root of everything. And I have friends that study the heart. I think we all kind of have an idea of what the heart does. You can feel it. It's like a pump, blood circulates through our bodies. But what is a thought? And how is it generated? We don't know. And I think it's one of the biggest mysteries of all, that we have. How is that generated? And there's just so many questions to be asked in the neurocognitive field, and it's so fundamental to who we are and our thoughts and memories, and also for neurodegenerative disorders and diseases. Some of the most frightening are those that you know lose thoughts, memories, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and more recently, some of the COVID effects. So I think that it'll keep us neuroscientists busy for some time trying to ask that basic question: what is a thought? Presumably, we all have them, although sometimes driving and things I definitely question. And I have teenage sons, which also makes me questions whether there's thinking going on. But it's definitely something that will keep us scientists busy.
Yeah, for sure on that. Good point. Now, you also conduct research into the long-term effects of COVID on the brain, which certainly is timely and quite interesting. What is the significance of this work?
It's the global pandemic, and obviously it's the amount of disorder in the world is caused by this tiny little virus originating from bats. I think what really fascinated me, I mean, I've been studying viruses in the brain for some time, and this particular virus was quite unusual in its effects on olfaction and smell. And that some of the earliest reports, very unusual, people reporting loss of smell. And that is unique to this coronavirus. And that sort of made people think that it was, infecting the olfactory system in some ways. And we don't really think about olfaction very much. We're very visual creatures. We don't think about smells so much, but they are very important to us. And the fact that this virus affected smell is was quite intriguing. And some of my initial thoughts were that some of these olfactory neurons were infected, and that has been proven totally false. It's one of these surprising things in the olfactory epithelium, which I think maybe most of us have felt our olfactory epithelium when they shove the Q-tips way so far up your nose. I bet you didn't think that your nose actually went back that far, but you can actually sample the olfactory epithelium. And it turns out that it was the supporting cells and not the olfactory neurons themselves that were infected. So that was quite interesting, and it really has made the field think about why that would be and what's unique about the virus. So, um, in terms of the long-term effects, usually the sense of smell will come back to people, but not always. And some people do have long-term loss of smell. Smell is very closely related to taste. And if you can't smell, you foods don't taste right, and people can get quite depressed when they lose olfaction. So I think that that's something that is very interesting relative to the long-term effects of COVID-19.
Really, some interesting feedback there, and smell is so important, isn't it? And how you broke that down for us. Looking forward to hearing more as well. Today, we're speaking with Dr. Rose Booze, professor and Bicentennial Endowed Chair in Behavioral Neuroscience at the University of South Carolina, here today on eHealth Radio's COVID information and mental health channels, a part of the eHealth Radio Network. Now, Dr. Booze, how could understanding the long-term effects of COVID on the brain impact humans in healthcare? Get into some of those details.
Well, first of all, it has really refocused. People that study the brain have been focused on neurons a lot because they're kind of the exciting cell that communicates, information. But I think we're coming to understand just how important these supporting cells are. They're called glia. And I think understanding the role of these supporting cells is going to be really important in a lot of different diseases, not just COVID. It also suggests that there's some inflammation in these supporting cells. And so it really has led to some interesting thoughts about how we can treat this long haul COVID people, and maybe with some anti inflammatories, things that would not have been thought of in terms of human brain health before, in that how we can therapeutically approach these supporting cells and thereby affect the actual neurons in the brain indirectly through therapeutics. So I think it has some pretty profound implications for treatment of long-term brain inflammation of these supporting cells.
And of course, everyone has their challenges in their field. What challenges do you face in your research, and what steps do you take to overcome those challenges?
I think the biggest challenge is just the complexity of the brain itself. And we have mentioned, like, what is a thought? The thought is generated from this amazing tissue. I mean, there's like 86 billion neurons in our brain, as many neurons as stars in the Milky Way, and they each make thousands of connections. I mean, it's almost inconceivable how complex the brains are. And that is a huge challenge trying to study something that complex. It's probably one of the most complex uh, things in the universe. Trying to understand. We've we've have tried to address some of this by we used to study single cells. Now we study more cells, but it's still just a small fraction of this complexity that we have in the brain. So we've done some computer modeling, and I think that will definitely continue into the future. The other challenge is like, the brain is protected by this skull, this thick, you know, um, bony structure. And it's good because, we don't want to have our brain sloshing around or something, but it really makes it difficult to study and to access. And we have brain imaging, which is getting better, but we still can't see individual cells in brain imaging. We have taken to looking at hundreds of thousands of neuronal connections, trying to get more of a comprehensive picture of what's going on in the brain, imaging many different neurons at once. But overall, I think the challenges are just due to the structure themselves, the complexity, the difficulty in accessing the brain, and it's a very difficult organ to study experimentally. But personally, I think one of the most important to really understand what's going on, both in normal function and in disease.
Dr. Booze, really do appreciate your visit with us here today on eHealth Radio and appreciate what you do in this space as well and for the information and insight shared. Before you go in conclusion, any closing thoughts, a takeaway, or a tip or anything else you'd like to mention as we conclude today?
Well, there is progress being made. It is a big challenge. And we definitely, within the last 5 years, have really accelerated our understanding with new techniques and things. So I would encourage people to, if they're possible, to join in some of the clinical trials, to think about donating some autopsy tissue has been incredibly useful in understanding COVID, and to participate in the scientific process if you're afforded the opportunity.
Well, Dr. Booze, thanks for those concluding remarks and again for joining us here today. If someone wanted to get more information on yourself or to be in contact, where's the best place online to do so?
I have a website, rosemariebooze.com, and that's a good resource in the near future.
And of course, we'll include that link within the show notes of this broadcast to further aid the audience as always. Dr. Booze, all the best, and hopefully we can have you back on with an update of sorts right here on eHealth Radio. Thanks so much.
Happy to do so, and it's great to talk with you.
You bet, anytime. We've been speaking with Dr. Rose Booze, professor and Bicentennial Endowed Chair in Behavioral Neuroscience at the University of South Carolina. And for all the details, visit rosebooze.com. And again, this has been your host, Eric Michaels, and we do thank you for your continued support of the eHealth Radio Network. Join us again soon for another episode that will help further expand your knowledge on those things that are important to your health and wellness. For more eHealth Radio reports, we invite you to visit our main radio channel site at eHealthRadioNetwork.com. And as always, we do thank you for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in to the eHealth Radio Network. For more information or to subscribe to this podcast, visit eHealthRadioNetwork.com.